think I'm broadcasting now. Looks like I'm broadcasting now. This is going to be something super different. I'll probably wait until there's at least a couple of people hanging out. So for starting out with, just any like questions that people have up front, that kind of thing, is going to be helpful. Just while we kind of wait for at least a couple of people to be. I don't expect this to be a busy stream. It's a Monday morning. And, you know, a lot of people are back at work. Not everyone works from home now. So I get that, like, it might not get busy, but it might at least be, you know, worth waiting for a couple of folk to fall in, just, you know, so that there's some people to actually benefit from the liveness of the experience. Obviously, like, you'll be able to watch it on playback anyway. So, you know, I should also say before we get started that I drink a lot of coffee, so I'm probably going to burp a lot, but that's not actually what I wanted to say. I can just feel a burp coming, and I know it's going to happen. There it is. So, I've never actually tried to do anything like this before. You can see this little light panel up here, which I will actually turn on when I change the camera angle. And this is going to sort of illuminate my monitors, but this is actually attached to my camera. My main camera, my high quality one that I use for the down cam shots in tutorials. And so what I'm going to have to do is kind of film the screens, and that's kind of the only way I can do it, because editing video happens across multiple monitors, and there's not really a good facility in Streamlabs for sharing multiple monitors that wouldn't make them like really shrunk down and leave awkward gaps in the screen and stuff. The other thing I should probably say before we start is that this is just like a look into my normal working day. This is literally what I'm sat at my desk doing, you know, on editing days. Painting days, you all kind of get to see that, because I live stream painting days sometimes. Hangout and hobby in my Discord, I'll sometimes obviously be there on painting days. So there's quite a lot of opportunity to get insight into that, but I don't really feel like people get to see the content creation side very much. What it is, what you actually do, what the physical processes are. And that's certainly something that used to be very interesting to me before I got into it. I really wished that there were more ways to see how people do this kind of stuff, and you know, what the job actually is, because I think folks sometimes don't necessarily know what the job is. I also have just realised that I forgot to share into my Discord. I still got it? Yeah, I have. It's all good. I forgot to share into my Discord that I was doing this live, and it's probably pretty important that I share it into my Discord. I imagine if anyone's going to want to know, then it's probably those people. But, you know. So, yeah. It's going to be quite different, what we're doing today. And I've never attempted it before. There's a bit of, like, juggly, I don't quite know how to do this sort of stuff. But I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be absolutely fine. I think I roughly know how it's going to go and all of that. So what I'll do is, because there's a couple of people watching now, I'll switch over to the other camera so that you can actually see my computer screens. What I would ask, the only thing I would ask for a stream like this, for this, you know, for the nature of the stream, is please be forthcoming with questions. I'm letting you into my working day. I normally do this alone. I normally do this with full concentration. And so, you know, as a question and answer process, it might not be the most natural thing for me to just kind of annotate what I'm doing, like verbally annotate what I'm doing. It's really going to help a lot if you specifically ask what you want to know. I will try to do my usual verbal annotation, because I know some people just don't like typing questions in chats on YouTube. I get that. That's fine. That doesn't mean this video isn't for you. I will try to just, you know, keep a commentary going of what I'm doing. But because it is something that I normally do solo and with complete concentration, I don't know how good I will be at that content. So, sorry, commentary. So please do ask lots of questions. Be forthcoming if you feel comfortable to do so, because that will really help me kind of know what it is you want to know. And there will be, you know, some stuff that I can probably do on the fly to kind of make it a bit more of an insightful experience. So if I just get rid of this view, you'll now be able to see my screen. You get a bit of screenception here, because this is currently up, but we don't want that up, we want this up. So what you should now be able to see, please tell me in the chat if you can't, but what you should be able to see is the two screens of my editor. Hit Film Express. Yes, you can. I've got a little preview window on YouTube, so because I have got a third monitor as well, which you can sort of just see poking out in the bottom of the picture. It's sort of just here. It's actually a graphics tablet, but which I use for like drawing thumbnails and stuff, but it functions as a third monitor for things like reading chat. It's quite handy for that purpose. Right, so where to begin? The first thing that you have to do when you make a video is load in all of your assets. So you can see that I've made these 5 folders: A, B, AS, Pics, and Swatch. AS is short for assets, not actual ass. So what this is my A roll, so this is me talking to the camera. This is my B roll, so these are all the unedited shots of down cam. So you can see there's 21 of those. There's 2 shots in that folder. This is things like my end credits. I've got my my personal ident here, my sponsor's ident, the Patreon reminder graphic, and the YouTube like sub graphic. This one I actually made myself, and I don't have the facility to make transparent MOV files. I just don't know how to do it. I could probably learn. So this one I have to do a bit of fuckery with when I put it into videos, but this one just drops in. It's just a 1080p overlay that just drops over a video. So yeah, there's like all these folders that contain various things. These are the pics of the completed piece, which I usually try to splice in somewhere near the front of the video so that people kind of know why they're watching. That's the thing that I started doing fairly recently, but it was something that kind of occurred to me that, you know, people maybe want to know why they're watching a video. You know, what's the end product that I'm going to get if I watch this video? You know, what am I aiming towards? A little sip of coffee there. And so I started including that kind of towards the front of the video. So what's that put us at now? That's like 21 in here, 25, 27. How many are in assets? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 32. So this is a pretty light video. And then these are those little overlay swatches that you see in the top corner of videos. So there's probably about 40 files that make up this video, which actually makes it a really light one. But as you can see, with 40 separate files that you've got to manage and go back and forth between and all that, you can see why that would be quite difficult to kind of keep a juggle on. I'll tell you what I'm going to do as well, just for when I'm talking to the face cam, I'm actually going to pop the webcam just down in the corner here, so that when I'm talking to you, I can actually look at you. It's a bit more friendly, isn't it? It's just a little bit more friendly. I think so anyway. So the first thing that I always do is my sponsor's splash goes in, which is what I've just put in over here. It's just drag and drop it. It comes from the assets directory. And then there's my little 10-second intro. That always goes in next. So just drag and drop that. And then the next thing that goes in is always my ident. So this is like a fixed order. This is how all videos start. And then the next thing that goes in is the main A-roll video. Okay, so that's the basic structure of the video. There's like the end card and stuff and the little reminders that go on in this section here, but I do those last. I don't do those sort of up front. Also, if you can see the amazing face that the camera has paused me on there. Not sure if it'll focus nicely or not, but maybe it will. The the pout of your dreams right there. Hope you enjoy that. So first things first, we have to zoom in on all of this so that we can start to chop it down accurately. First thing I need to do is check my audio levels. So I keep my sound consistent. I keep my speaker setup and everything consistent so that I have an audible cue. I know in my head what it should sound like through my sound system in order to sound good. And then what I'll usually do is after I've uploaded, but before I publish, I'll usually check the audio on my phone as well, because you'd be amazed, so many people consume pretty much all of their YouTube on their phones. This is something I didn't realize, because we use computers in every room as entertainment boxes. So obviously my office has a computer, our bedroom has a computer hooked up to a telly, and our lounge has a computer hooked up to our telly. Lounge computer is gaming capable and VR capable as well, so that we can enjoy those things. And so, you know, in every room where we chill, there is a computer and an internet connection. And so I didn't really realise at first how many people watch YouTube on mobile, but a lot of the decisions that you make as a YouTuber really have to consider mobile, because it's a really popular way of consuming it. I will also probably be sort of reading tweets and stuff like that. The things people tweet to me. It's pretty funny. So yeah, let's get on with it. Let's try and actually stay focused. So yeah, the first thing I need to do is check my audio levels. So I'll just play the section at the front, because everything's recorded on the same mic, usually at the same facial distance. So just check this. Today I finally get my hands on something that I've been and for ages. Yeah, it's a little bit quiet. It usually comes out a touch quiet, so I'll just up the audio levels on both of these to match. Check it again. Today I finally get my... Perfect, that's exactly where I want it. And then we just trim off the front here. My hands on something that I've been wanting to paint for ages. Trim off the end here. Use this function called ripple deletion. What kit do I use? Camera, lens, mic, etc. So the camera it's a Panasonic Lumix G7. Which is kind of like the industry standard down cam for painters. Like most of the good mini painting channels use like that or above. There are some cameras now that have come out more recently that far supersede the functions of this one. And what I will be looking to do when I can afford it is to get an HDMI live desk and a second DSLR, and actually run two DSLRs into my capture card through one input on a camera switcher, and have a better quality one for down cam, and this one will become a face cam. But at the moment, it's a Lumix G7. The lens is the 12 to 60 G Vario. I don't know a ton about lenses, I'm not gonna lie. 1 to 3.5 to 5.6, 12 to 60. Those are the numbers. But that's actually the lens that comes with the G7. It just happens to be really good for exactly what I do. It's very good at close focus, at macro focus. You don't tend to want actual macro lenses for mini painting, because they want to be too close, and by the time you've got good focus on them, you generally don't have all of your mini in the shot. And you want to be able to have all of your mini in the shot. You want your mini to kind of fill a 1080p shot when you're showing sort of detailed stuff. There is a bit of a thing that, you know, showing minis too close is actually really unhelpful, because it sort of makes it hard to take in exactly what's going on in relation to the rest of the mini. And then the mic is an AKG I think it's like a P150. It's a condenser mic, you know, like a vocal mic. you might just about be able to see there's an XLR cable trailing off it here, which snakes down its little stand under my desk and back up into the back of a Focusrite Scarlett that is over there. So audio is provided by Focusrite Scarlett 2nd generation. I don't have the newest one. And then the AKG condenser mic. One of the things I really like about this condenser mic as well is it has a minus 20 decibel dip on it. So if you're operating it in a really loud environment and you want to use it really closely, like a podcast mic, you can actually click in a minus 20 decibel dip, and then you can get really, really close to it, and it functions more like sort of an ASMR mic. So it has that kind of split functionality, which I think is really helpful. What else? Editing software is HitFilm Express version. Well, it's HitFilm Express 4 version 15 is the current version, I believe. The reason I use HitFilm's not the most popular, and it's certainly not the best. The reason I use HitFilm is because it is so simple. It's not the most powerful, but it's really, really easy to use, and that makes, for someone like me who had to completely self-teach editing, that's kind of essential. Hey Ren, how you doing, mate? Good to see you. Right, so when we trim these sections, so we want this part in the middle here. This is the bit that we want, which means we need to get rid of these two bits. There's this function called ripple deletion, where you delete it and it pulls the next bit up to fill the gap. What you can also do is if you actually remove it, you can ripple delete gaps as well, like that. And then here we will also have a gap that needs to go. So that's the front trimmed up. That part is now trimmed up. And I put my effects on while I'm working. That to me is, had my jab, then I spend the day asleep. Oh, bless you. Bless you. Filmora, is that the one that's got a mobile app? Am I right in thinking that's the one that's got a mobile app? Like I said, I will be reading tweets and stuff during this because people are interacting with the posts that lead into this stream. So if I stop to read my phone for a second, it just gives me an opportunity to let you folks type stuff in chat, and then that gives me stuff to answer. So, you know, it works to both of our favour if I stop for a second every now and again. Right, let's continue. So I put my effects in as I go. I keep a little favourites tab here in my effects. So along here there's media effects, controls, history and text. These are sort of the categories for different things that you need to modify when you're putting footage together. And it's a good cup of coffee. I always keep consistent effects in different areas. So for example, there's always a fade to black here, and there's always a fade to black here. So we just manually place those on the point of transition, and it puts them between both. And then what I can do is actually just scroll back, and you'll see now in the little preview window here. And that thing is a Leviathan Dreadnought from Forge World. I've been wanting, I have been coveting, I have been salivating over these things for so long now, and I just never seem to find an excuse to buy myself one. I don't know why it's worked out that way, but it's always worked out that way. So you can imagine how delighted I was when I was commissioned to paint one. Now you will have already seen, hopefully, my previous video about Night Lords, but if you haven't, we're going to be using a lot of the same techniques from that video, which I'll do a thing over there. I'll do a thing there. So that is an example. Boomer does technology. Fuck off, Fonzie. Welcome in, mate. Welcome in. Yeah, I thought it was the one that had both desktop and app, because I believe I've got a friend who I think edits on the mobile app, which is amazing to me. So yeah, that was a thing there where I actually put in a deliberate thing that I'm not going to edit out. Previous video about Night Lords, but if you haven't, we're going to be using a lot of the same techniques from that video, which I'll do a thing over there. I'll do a thing there so that you can... Right. So I don't know how good the audio is. Is the audio coming through okay for you? Because if it isn't, I can actually enable desktop audio so that you can hear the audio when I'm playing stuff. If folks can tell me... Night Lords, but if you haven't, we're going to be using a lot of the same techniques from that video, which I'll do a... So is that coming? If that's coming through, just let me know in the chat. If it's not coming through, I'll enable... It's pretty quiet. Okay. What I'll do then is I'll enable desktop audio. And now when I play it, which I'll do a thing. So, yeah, so you should be hearing it through the computer now. Over there. I'll do a thing there so that you can see that. And there's also going to be some manual panel modulation on this, which I'll do another thing sort of somewhere around there so that you can see that as well. Yeah, so that, the idea behind that is... it's a thing that you sometimes put into videos like for comic effect, where you make it look like you've left something in that you should have edited out. So that is a thing that you'll see as a theme in my videos. I like a lot of that kind of comedy. Bottom Live is a really good example. In Bottom Live, which is... it's Rick Mail and Adrian Edmondson. If you're not familiar with them, they're very popular British comedians. Okay, as long as it's not to a disturbing level, that's fine. Yeah, I know my mic's going to grab a little bit of it. There's not a lot I can do about that, but as long as it's fine. But they had a TV series, which is all, you know, obviously properly edited for TV and everything, and then they started to tour that TV series. It's very silly toilet humour. It's its own thing. If you're familiar with Bottom, you know what it is. But one of the things that they would always do when they toured it live was any mistakes or improvisation that happened during the live shows, they would actually leave in the tapings. They wouldn't edit it out. And it got to the point where people really liked it, so they'd start deliberately leaning into it and actually creating these ad-libbed, off-script situations that involved like the audience interrupting or people fucking up a line or whatever. And it's just a kind of comedy that I really like. It inspires me, so I carry it through into my video editing style. So I will occasionally do these things where I put something into the video that looks like it should have been edited out, but it's actually deliberate. It's important to remember when you've done those things and to be able to spot them, because obviously you don't want to accidentally actually edit them out and kind of ruin your own joke. And about 30 years old. Yeah, it's getting on a bit now. It's getting on a bit now. Because those two videos are going to serve as really good prerequisites to things that we do in this video. So you might want to watch them afterwards, because I will be skipping over stuff for the sake of not doing it too many times. So let's go paint a Leviathan Dreadnought. I'm very excited. Very, very excited. Okay, so this is where the first actual edit comes in. So we'll snip here, and then we'll just check how the audio comes in here. Okay, step one. Right, so the audio comes in pretty strong there, so we want a very, very tight clip. This is an important thing again. If your audio comes in soft, you might want a longer clip so that the viewer has a second to actually process you starting to talk before you start talking. But if your audio comes in very strong, then you tend to want an immediate clip. You want it really staccato, really tight into the audio. So what I'll sometimes even do is like zoom this really, really close in so that I can get right on it. And that looks quite big because we're zoomed in so far. But when we pull back and ripple delete this, we can now check this transition, which you should always do. I'm very excited. Very, very excited. Okay, step one. And there you go, it's perfect. It's really, really choppy, which is how you want that kind of edit. So depending on what sort of audio you're using, around the point of the transition, depends on how close you want to clip to that audio coming in. It's just something to bear in mind. Again, I'm explaining this stuff not necessarily to teach anyone, because to be honest, like I said, I'm self-taught. I probably have taught myself a lot of bad habits. I'm explaining this stuff more just so that people understand my thought process, the thinking that goes into the creation. I'm not at all saying that anyone should be emulating anything that I'm doing, because I'm a total amateur when it comes to video editing, completely self-taught. And the only sort of known entity that I've really had any good guidance from would be Pleasant Kenobi. He's given me some great tips when it comes to video editing, especially to do with like things like audio cues and stuff. But in general, I have no experience, I have no pedigree, I have no formal training. So it's more of a this is what I do, not a you should be doing this kind of approach. Let's continue. It involves a very tight but very heavy dry brush with some P3 Boiler Black over our black undercoat. Now the idea here is to use a small dry brush so that we can get right into the details. That's why I call it a tight dry brush. So we only want the very deepest recesses to not have any paint on them. Okay, so I remember this bit from recording it. So I know that this is actually one section. The gap is not the end of the section, so I'm trimming this first before I put the B-roll over it. This is to not have any paint on them. But at the same time, this is going to be a heavy dry brush because we're trying to build up a lot of this Boiler Black as a good solid base to the further metallics that we're going to do shortly. Okay, so that's actually the end of the section right there. Pull that back. So what we now need to do, can actually close this and close this, but we want this open. So I number all of my videos, and the file names are actually my script. This is something that I do that I don't think anyone else does this as far as I'm aware. But what I do is number my videos in the order that they're supposed to go when I shoot them. I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see that. Hopefully you can. But then the file name is my script for that video, and it's very abridged. You know, it's a shorthand for what I want to say. Like you might be able to make out that in this video name we've got SW in brackets. That's actually an indicator to me that I need to make a swatch for that color because I don't have one. Things like that. So it's little cues for how to work. So what we do, I always know which video goes over which section, excuse me, because I'm putting them together in order. So obviously, you know, if I've just done video 1, then I know that next I need to do video 2. It's a very straightforward system. But when I drop this over, what I need to do is choose when it's going to flick off of my face cam and into the footage. That's the first thing I need to do. Not have any paint on them. But at the same time, this is going to be a heavy... So, I'm in the wrong section. Very excited. Okay, step 1 involves a very tight but very heavy dry brush. Okay, yeah, so that's pretty good. I usually just want to leave like a couple of seconds of face at the start. And then I already know where this needs to end because I've got this clip here already trimmed up. So I know that this needs to be roughly half its length. I also know that in terms of watchability, anything up to about 400% speed up is still fairly watchable. Beyond that, it starts to look quite shaky when you're moving things around. So you only really want to speed up faster than that in sections where you don't really need to show what you're doing. But with this, I can see that the length of these two clips is roughly half the length of this clip. So I know that if I go to, say, we'll try 200% first, see what kind of fit that is. So that's almost a bang on fit, to the point where I know that there's just a little section at the start of this that is a bit of me just bringing the brush over to the minute. Black over our black undercoat. Now the idea here is to use a small dry brush so that we can get right into the details. That's why I call it a tight dry brush. So we only want the very deepest recesses to not have any paint on them. But at the same time, this is going to be a heavy dry brush because we're trying to build up a lot of this Boiler Black as a good solid base to the further metallics that we're going to do shortly. Step 2. Okay, so that's nice. I like that. I like the way it lines up. It's very clear, you can see what I'm doing. You know, there's no sections where my hands are in the way that I need to clip about or anything. So that's all good. I'm happy with that. So the next thing I need to do now is add the swatch over it. I do sometimes go back and do all these swatches at the end, but it doesn't really make a difference. It's not any faster or slower. So we'll just add the swatch here. And then I also need to go into my effects tab and put a cross dissolve on the front and a cross dissolve on the end. And now you end up with this. Involves a very tight but very heavy dry brush. Beautiful. With some P3 Boiler Black over our black undercoat. So as you can imagine, we've now got to repeat that process for every single instruction in the video, which is a bit of a thing. It takes quite a lot of time to do. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. It's probably the main sort of legwork of putting the video together, other than obviously the shooting. That's the other thing to bear in mind, is that prior to this, any graphics that is needed I had to make in Photoshop. I had to make a thumbnail for it in Photoshop, which I have got done. All the obviously downcam footage has to be shot. So even when the point that we get to this editing stage, there's already hours of work in the video. Like, even just when we get to this point, there's however long it took to paint the miniature, because you know you're shooting the footage at the same time, so it's pretty much time neutral. But there's the time it took to paint the miniature, the time it took to make the thumbnail, the time it took to make any graphics you need for it, the time it took to do any research you needed to do for it, which fortunately with my content, I don't often need to do a lot of research, because I'm generally producing content on things that I already know about. Or it's not strictly saying that it's not because I already know about them, because even if you already know about a subject, you should still research on it. But it's because I'm specifically teaching people how I do things. Obviously, you don't need to research how you do things. You already know how you do things. So I'm quite lucky in the sense that I don't tend to have to do tons and tons of research in order to sort of get to the point where I'm ready to, you know, start putting things together. Does anyone else have any additional questions at this stage while I'm just catching up with interactions? Okay, so next clip 2 is P3 Cold. So again, about there, sort of when I name the color is usually about a good point to come in. And I just want to check this a minute. Yeah, so that's me coughing, so that's why there's a spike in the audio there. Okay, so now for step 3. Right, and that is a new step. So if I trim out here and in here, get rid of this. So in this case, this is where I've got a clip that's way longer than what I actually need. How long does it take to edit a video? I mean, obviously today it's going to take longer than it normally would because I'm chatting about it while I'm doing it. But typically probably 3-4 hours is, you know, about right for a normal quote unquote video. It really depends, you know, like for example, the Squig Hopper that I released last week, that had a lot of footage to edit together. There was like just the down cam footage for that. Excuse me, my voice is a bit cracky this morning. Just the down cam footage for that video was over 50 clips, and that's without all of the other elements that had to go into it. That's also the reason I didn't do color swatches for that video, because I just wouldn't have had time to edit it all. if I'd have had to do color swatches for it, because I'd have needed to make quite a few of the color swatches for it, because there were a number of colors that I don't often use, so I don't currently have swatches made for them. But it also would have added like an extra, 30 seconds of work to every single one of those clips. And so when there's 50 clips, then, that in and of itself is already adding like a chunk of time to create in the video. I mean, that's over an hour of extra work, just to add in the swatches for a video that's got that many clips. So, it really depends. And the main thing it depends on is how many clips need to be edited over it. So in this instance, I'm going to have to speed this footage up quite a bit, but I don't want to speed it up too much, because I don't want it to look jarring against the previous one. So I'll start off at 300%, and that actually gets me pretty close. And I also know that this is just me dry brushing, so I can afford to actually nip off the end of this, because if we watch it in context... Step 2 is P3 Cold Steel, and we're still going to be using the small dry brush here, because this is a mid-tone, so we still want a fair bit of it. We're going to be getting it into the tighter details slightly, but it's going to be a little bit more gentle than the previous one. Okay, so now for step 3, you see, it's fine, because it's just dry brushing. So, this is one of the things why it can be a little bit heartbreaking if like there's a couple of things in content creation that can kind of hurt a bit. One is if you just make like a silly mistake and you've put hours and hours and hours into filming and editing a piece, and you just make a dumb mistake because you're not paying attention or you overlook something, and like everyone picks up on it. That's happened to me once or twice, and that is fucking heartbreaking, because like it obviously, like, your mind wasn't on it, so you missed it, and so you instantly feel like it can't have been that much of a big deal because I wouldn't have missed it. But then everyone starts picking up on it. It's like, oh fuck, this was such a bad mistake, and like that obviously feels really bad. The other thing is, when you get people that just shit on your content just because it exists, not for any reason, again, when you put like 5, 6, 7 hours into editing a video and fucking 15 into shooting it, like, for someone to come along and just shit on it for it existing, like, it wounds. It really wounds. And that's why sometimes people can be a little bit sensitive or protective over their content, because the amount of time investment into creating a video is a lot bigger than people realize. I'm going to finally move up to the big brush, and it can't hit the shadows because the brush is too big. Clever, eh? So in this case, what I'm doing is just skipping through the footage now, because I've got a rough idea now of how things pace out and how it all fits together. So at this point, I can start to speed up a little bit and do things in sections. The previous one. Okay, so now for step 3, I'm going to finally move up to the big brush, and this time we're just going to dry brush in some... Okay, and again, we need to speed up, so we're going to go for about 300% initially. So 300% is actually a bit too short, so we'll speed up to 250%, and that's almost bang on. Like, we'll literally be shaving a millisecond or two off the end here, so that's obviously just fine. And that gets us that one. So now we'll do the swatches for those two at the same time. Oh, that's a good point, actually. I need to import my swatch for Necron Compound, which lives separately because it's the only dry paint I really use. I like the dry paints, I just don't dry brush that often, so I don't use them that often. So Cold Steel goes on here, and Necron Compound goes on here. And then we again add those transition effects, cross dissolve in, cross dissolve out, cross dissolve, shake it all about. I really wish, one thing about this software, I really wish there was a way you could double click these effects into a video. If it's an effect that actually applies to the entire clip, you can just highlight the clip and double click it, which is so much more fluid as an action for applying the effect. But if it's a transitional effect that you have to specify whether it's going on the start or the end of the clip, you have to drag and drop it. Or at least as far as I'm aware, you have to drag and drop it. As far as I know, there's no way to actually double click it onto the clip, which is quite frustrating because it makes what should be quite an organic and fluid process a bit more difficult. Okay, so is this all just one section?
Exile Blue from P3, but...
Alright, so that's a mistake. You can see I stopped.
But for the purposes of this job,
Right. So again, because this is a mistake, I need to be really tight to my audio on this side. And then I need to isolate where it needs to fit.
A little bit time consuming.
Oh, there's a sniff there as well, which I'd like to get rid of.
Time consuming.
Right, so that's the sniff, that little peak there. So now if we pull this out. Yeah, it's a good idea actually, Ren. It's a good idea. Right, so I've managed to trap that sniff as well, so hopefully this will be nice and clean now.
Simple, it's very straightforward. It is a little bit time consuming, but for the purposes of this job, the client wanted a bit of texture in the finish. They didn't want the finish to be like ultra smooth. So I figured it would make more sense for this one to do the metal skeleton first and then manually paint all of the armor plates. You could totally do it the other way around. You could do the metal skeleton with the airbrush, or you could airbrush on the armor plate color first and then paint in the metal skeleton. There are a number of ways you can tackle it.
Okay, so that is actually a little bit waffly, and normally I would want to edit that down a little bit, but because the tone of my tutorial videos tends to be quite natural and quite conversational, I won't always do that, just because you can be in danger sometimes if you edit out all of the waffle and it's really choppy and staccato and concise. It stops feeling like a conversation. It starts feeling a bit like a sermon. So in that case there, I'm going to actually see how it lines up with the clip, and I'm not going to necessarily edit it down. So this is clip 4, I think. No, yeah, clip 4. And right, so we can actually just play this clip at normal speed and it works. So I think that's what I'm going to do, is just leave it in.
The next job is some Exile Blue from P3, and we're going to start blocking in armor panels with this. It's very simple, it's very straightforward. It is a little bit time consuming, but for the purposes of this job, the client wanted a bit of texture in the finish. They didn't want the finish to be like ultra smooth.
Now what you can do, and this is something that I will do fairly often, is if you don't want the footage to feel like it's dragging on too much, you can actually just cut a little piece out.
So I figured it would make more sense for this one to
just cut a little piece out like that, and then what it'll do is, because underneath you've got your A-roll, your face cam footage, just flick back to your face for a second. So again, you can see now.
Purposes of this job, the client wanted a bit of texture in the finish. They didn't want the finish to be like ultra smooth. So I figured it would make more sense for this one to do the metal skeleton first and then manually paint all of
and that just breaks up that footage a little bit, makes it feel a little bit more, you know, again, like you're having a conversation with someone. That's kind of your face in video, I feel, is kind of a tool for connecting with your audience. The inclusion of your face in video is sort of how you emote to your audience. And it's why you'll notice that, like, all the video editors that are really good at video editing will always include sections of either face cam where they're talking to the camera like I often do, or like footage of them, B-roll of them like working, that kind of thing. And these are ways that we sort of emote with the audience. I've done it before now. It's always nice when you see a simple change implemented that helps your workflow. The thing is, I'm not sure how they'd actually put it in anyway. I don't know. It'd probably end up being like a right click or something, like a right click drop down menu, add to end of transition or something like that. And I don't know if that'd actually be any quicker anyway. So it's just that fluidity of having to break flow. So again, we'll just grab our Exile Blue swatch here, because that's the color we were using. Stick a cross dissolve on either side of it. And you can see
Style
now.
blue from P3, and we're going to start blocking in armor panels with this. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. It is
right to the end. So now we've just got a gap here that we need to get rid of.
a number of ways you can tackle it. Okay, from there we'll do some selective shading with Nuln Oil.
Okay, so again, I'll wait roughly till I say what paint it is. And then I'll add my clip. In this case,
things down a lot.
Again, I roughly know how the clips line up. In this case, one of the advantages of I tend to shoot my face cam on the same day I'm going to edit a video. So I shot my face cam this morning before doing this live. One of the reasons I do that is because it means that what I'm saying to the camera is fresh in my head, so it makes it a bit easier for me to do stuff like that kind of quickly, just know how to trim things instinctively instead of having to sort of watch every single bit of footage. So we'll try 200 here first of all, and 200 is pretty much perfect. So what we'll do is actually just shunt the clip along a little bit, and then that's Nuln Oil. So again, we need a Nuln Oil swatch, so we bang that on, bang on across dissolve, bang on across dissolve, check it.
Nuln Oil. There's a few areas here where they're going to be painted black, so it kind of doesn't matter if the Nuln Oil hits them, but for the most part we're trying not to dull too much of the visible metal. The bits that are kind of tucked away in the recesses where it's all going to get oily and grimy, those are more the bits where we're happy for the Nuln Oil to dull things down a lot. Right.
Okay, so yeah, that's fine.
Right, next up is that highlighting process.
Okay, so I know that this is a part where we're skipping ahead. And I know that because this is all information that's in 2 previous videos, and I wanted to make a point of not going back over it in this video. Something I'm personally particularly guilty of is retreading ground, repeating myself. I'm really bad for it, and it's a personal flaw, I guess. I mean, I suppose it's not really a flaw. Like, no one gets super angry at you for repeating yourself, but in an effort to try and make my videos a bit more polished than the wreck that is my own personality, I try to make sure that I don't do too much repeating myself in my videos these days. I used to not really address it. If I did it, I'd just leave it and just, you know, fine, I did it, whatever. But that's not, like, I want to hold my video editing to a higher standard than that. So if I notice that I'm repeating myself, I'll make an effort to remove it, or I'll try and script myself up front in such a way that makes it unlikely for me to repeat myself. So that's just a thing. And this is a really long clip, but this is one of those clips where, like I said, we don't need, so this is the amount of space we've got to work with, not a lot, just this. And this clip is like 2.5 minutes, but this is an area where we can go really fast. We can super speed this clip because we're going to be recommending the viewer go and watch another video that actually explains how to do this section. Just Kev says, hey gang, question. People work as YouTube editors, or is that something I've misheard? Like, you send your raw... Yeah. Professional video editors do indeed do content for YouTube. And in fact, since YouTube has become such a popular platform, that's actually where most video editors get their regular work from these days. Like, you'll have the movie people who just edit for the movies. But the majority of video editors these days are actually doing it for social media purposes, like YouTube. In terms of what they charge, it's honestly how long is a piece of string. People who are just sort of getting into it are probably going to be charging somewhere around £10 or £15 an hour, and that's pretty affordable. Whereas, people that have been doing it for years may well charge like 30, 40 quid an hour. They may charge by the video. They probably won't charge by the video because there's such a broad range of what desired output versus amount of input goes into a video, and what that creates. So I would suspect that it's very unlikely to see video editors that charge by the video. I wouldn't have thought that would be the case. Okay. So yeah, I can afford to speed this up quite a bit. So this is 2:36, and this clip is, in fact, to tell you what I'll do is actually clip it there just for time reference. This is 18 seconds. So if we were to bring this down to being 18 seconds, the whole thing, what does that translate to? 870% speed increase, which is actually probably okay, to be honest with you. But again, we can check it. We don't need to guess. We can know.
As I said, there are links at the start of the video that show the two videos that kind of pertain to the techniques I'm using here. This is very time consuming, so I'm not going to sit here and go through the whole thing. It probably took about 3-4 hours to glaze up all of the highlights on this, because it's a big miniature with a lot of flat panels.
There you go. Right, I think this looks like, so I don't know how well you can see the waveform here, but this looks characteristic of a mistake. It might not be, I'll need to check it, but this looks like it might be an area where I've fucked up and then took a second. I can see myself sipping my coffee there in the preview. So this next section is probably something I'm going to have to edit a fair bit. I get my trimmer ready.
However, when all of that is done, you do end up with a Dreadnought that looks a little bit like this.
Okay, so that's actually not, that is actually the next clip, which is fine. But then from here, this looks like I've taken a break for a second. Yeah, I've taken a break, had a little vape, had a sip of coffee. Quite often we'll do that and just leave the face cam running. And the reason I just leave the face cam running is just because I always worry that if I turn it off, I might do something that like affects the light or positioning or focus or something like that. And also it just discourages me from stopping for too long. There's a little cough. You can spot your ums from the waveform now. Yeah, it's a really good skill to learn how to pick out characteristic things from the waveform of your video. I personally, again, I'm not someone that tends to heavily trim their ums out, but that's because I use a different vocal technique. I use a vocal technique to prevent myself from umming too much, which is that I drag instead on words at the start of a sentence usually, or I do what I'm doing right now, where I'll deliberately speak staccato in order to give me a second to process the thoughts while I'm speaking. So these are live speaking techniques that come from, you know, seminar training, presentation training, corporate shit that I used to do when I was back in the corporate world many years ago, which is actually also where I did my teaching qualifications. So they're different techniques. Some people really like to chop their ums, but there are other things you can do to limit them, or you can kind of present in a way where they just sort of fade into the background a little bit more. If you are someone who wants to chop all of their ums out of their video, then yeah, like Rising Ape says, if you can spot them in the waveform, that's really going to help you streamline your editing process. This was a long break. Jesus fucking Christ. That's another cough. Yep. Oh, throat clear. That's the thing I was taught as a teacher. Most of my sentences start with yeah, exactly. Yeah, you drag on the first word whilst you formulate the thought. It's just a bit easier to hold people's attention that way. Okay, here we go. Right, so that was let's see how long I actually stopped for there. 4 minutes and 20 seconds. 420 Blazer. There you go. That was 4 minutes and 20 seconds that I actually just stopped talking for. So this little clip here is where the update footage goes in. It's only 13 seconds long, but what I'll tend to do with update footage like this is I'll still speed it up a bit. Let's say 150%. That brings it to 8 seconds long. And then here's another neat trick, and you can definitely thank Mr. Pleasant Kenobi for this one because he taught me this. So if you actually pull this clip out to create a silence, But instead of placing the new clip right here on the point of termination, so you can see here, this is the point of transition between the two clips. Instead of placing this here, actually pull it in a fraction. What that does is it just makes that silence less jarring as you come back out of it, because there's still something happening on screen before the audio transition. So your brain doesn't link the visual transition and the audio transition together in something that's like, boom, jarring. Instead, it's two separate, smaller points of transition close together that's less immediately like, ooh, for the viewer. So that's another interesting little tip for the video editors out there. And you'll see as this comes together now.
However, when all of that is done, you do end up with a Dreadnought that looks a little bit like this.
You see we're in silence now, no problem.
Okay, next I have this really cool idea that I want to paint like a skull.
I'll try and remember that. I need to do more videos for work and play, but don't want to. Blah. Yeah, just drag on the first word while you're thinking. You'll notice actually, if you listen to me talking now in this live, where I'm not thinking about it, I'm much more relaxed here because I'm just in work mode. I'm not really in presentation mode. I'm just kind of chatting to you guys, and you're all regular viewers anyway, so I'm not really like on right now, if that makes sense. I'm just kind of doing my thing that I would normally do. I'm still stopping and vaping, I'm still stopping and checking my phone, I'm still sipping my coffee. And you'll actually notice I'm umming quite a bit at the moment because I'm not doing as much of that directed thought technique to try and minimize that kind of thing. Right there's an So you'll notice a big difference actually between how I talk in my videos and how I talk when I'm just chatting to a camera casually like this. And that just comes from a place of knowing when you need to engage that part of your brain, knowing when you need to use that technique, and not, you don't want to be on all the time. Nothing looks more fake, to me at least, than if somebody is in presentation mode even when they're just having a conversation. Like, everyone understands that a YouTube video is a presentation. Everyone gets that. That's not abnormal. Of course, you want a degree of presentation and theatre and polish to a YouTube video that you're creating. So you want to have a style of presentation and a method of delivery. You want those things because you want that polish. But it looks so fake if you look like you're in character or on when you're just doing something informal like this. And this is kind of just, how I'd talk to, if there was a mate sat opposite me instead of a camera, this is kind of pretty much how I'd have the conversation. The only thing I'm being conscious of right now when I'm talking is I'm just being conscious of my volume level. I'm speaking a bit louder than I normally would, and that's because I want a nice clear reception in the mic. And the only other thing I'm doing is I'm just being a little bit more careful with my enunciation. I'm just trying to make sure that I pronounce words clearly. And again, that's just because I'm conscious of the fact that I have non-English viewers or non-English speaking viewers, people who, for whom English is their second language. And so I'm trying to, and especially I'm aware of this because I talk very fast, I'm just trying to make sure that I say my words clearly. But other than those two things, I'm kind of off right now, and you can actually see a real difference in presentation style compared to what I'm doing now as versus what you'll see me do in a video. Right, skull clip. Okay, so again, we've got only a little bit too much footage here.
Front facing, it looks like there's one big skull in the middle of the body of the Dreadnought. Pretty cool, I think. Pretty cool, I think.
Okay, so that's where we want our trim, which means that we've only got slightly too much footage. So what I'll actually do here is I'll just go to 125%, and that gets me pretty much bang on. There you go. As Southerners struggle too. I mean, mate, I'm from fucking everywhere. It's, I've been told that I have the most nondescript accent ever. Like, no one can tell where I'm from by my accent because I was born in London, spent my early childhood in London, moved to Manchester, spent like my middle childhood in Manchester, moved to Nottingham, spent my young adulthood between Nottingham and Derby, then moved down to Bath, lived down Bath for like 12 years. So I've been so all over the place my entire life, never, you know, really letting an accent bed in. And what actually happens is when I am around accents that I've been exposed to in the past, I accidentally start picking up on them. Okay.
And since that worked out well, I also decided...
And again, I've got to be fairly quick on this because this is a lot of footage to fit into a small amount of time.
Since I'm freehanding anyway, what I'm now going to do is go around and start chasing some lightning around.
Okay, so that is the next section.
Just sort of complete the Night Lord's logo that way and it would look sweet.
So we'll remove that, but we won't delete it. And we're actually going to create... Let's see here. This is 2 minutes long, so let's look at it at 500%. That's still a bit long for my taste. So let's look at it at 700%. Still a bit long. I don't want too much silence, because I don't put music under my videos, remember? Hey, Phrase, you alright, mate? Welcome in, welcome in. We are editing live. This is something I never thought I would do. I also just realised I didn't turn this light on. I don't know if this light actually helps with visibility very much, but if it does, then I'll leave it on. The only thing is, obviously, it's going to glare on this camera when it's on, so I'll leave that to you folks as to whether this bright light is more annoying than it is helpful to the screen. I have a feeling it's probably just more annoying. I'm split with you on that. Former Manku lives near Stonehenge now. Northerner comes out and drink. Yeah, exactly. It's just a thing, isn't it? So you're down Salisbury way, are you? I spent a fair bit of time over there. I actually really like Salisbury as a town. So let's try 800. And then maybe try trimming a little bit off. Can we trim a bit off at the start? Yeah, we can trim a bit off at the start. So let's do that. Pull this clip back a touch. See, that gives us not too much silence now. Something like that. Let's test it.
I think. And since that worked out well, I also decided to freehand the wing motif of the Night Lords onto the chest plates either side. Figured I could just sort of complete the Night Lords logo that way and it would look sweet.
Yeah, that's fine, sped up. It's actually better it being sped up in a way as well, because my hands are in the way of the footage sometimes, which you just can't do anything about. Do you know what, actually? It's funny you should say that, Librarian, because I actually think that my voice sounds really fucking boring. And I often wonder if that's one of the reasons why my channel isn't bigger than it is. Like, I think people really like American accents for commentary. And me not owning one of those, I sometimes think puts some people off, actually. I don't know. Just remembered as well, I need to put my swatches on some of these clips. That is something that I often forget. I always go back and check, but I do sometimes forget to add a swatch. So, you know, if you have stuff like that, I only spent time on the plane. Salisbury town itself is lovely. The cathedral's fucking beautiful. Do you know it also has one of the tallest cathedral spires in Europe? It's not like the tallest or anything, but it's like quite high up there in the rankings, and that's quite surprising. Do 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 do. do. what's with the sicky emojis? I run Land Rover tours of Salisbury Plains. Nice. I was a stab for a while. For those of you that don't know what the acronym STAB means, I believe, I'm not 100% certain on this, but I believe it's soft TA bastard. Is that right, librarian? Yay! Somebody just made a hateful comment on my brush care video and then deleted it, so I can't even see the whole comment. They just called me creepy and then said that I created a lying soap retard post, and then it like dots off and the comment's been deleted, so I can't see it. Because somebody said that I've just lumped myself in with the meme tards for using brush soap, which I mean, I don't know how I'm supposed to take that, but apparently I'm not supposed to take that as them calling me a tard. I guess. I mean, for a start, let's just be very clear on the fact that it's just a really horrible fucking word to use. Like, you just, as an adult, you should not be using that word. Like, if you caught a child using that word, you would tell them off. It's not acceptable. You certainly shouldn't be calling other adults it. But also, like, saying that I've lumped myself in with the meme tards by using brush soap instead of makeup remover, like, how else am I supposed to take that you're calling me a tard? I don't understand. What other way could I read that isn't you calling me a tard? Like, why am I lying if I then tell people that you called me a tard? That's not lying. I don't know. Am I wrong? Someone help me out with that. Like, I just do not believe that that's a word we should be calling each other for a start. Like, if you're even using that word, that's an alarm bell for me. I have got some colour swatches to add over that as well. Bit of that. And a bit of that. So here's the thing. If my colour swatches, if they're in groups like this, then I don't actually put the cross dissolve onto the end of each clip. I put one in the transition point instead here. So there's only 3 cross dissolves, not 4. It just keeps the text on screen for a tiny bit longer.
To freehand the wing motif of the Night Lords onto the chest plates either side. Figured I could just sort of complete the Night Lords logo that way and it would look sweet.
So yeah, that's the thing. Soft or stupid, yeah. Yeah, I used to have a friend who was, well, I mean, I still have a friend who's in the TAs, and we used to talk about it quite a lot. Military's one of those things that I have an interest in, but I know I'm not cut out for it. And so, you know, it's kind of something that I find interesting to talk about, interesting to learn about, interesting to know about, interesting to understand. But it's not something I've ever done, because my personality type is just like, I'm too reactive, you know. I'm like, I've gotten way better at it as an adult, but I'm just quite a reactive person, and that is bad when you've got authority figures. Oh, I think I might have missed something. I think I might have actually missed a clip.
Okay, since I'm freehanding anyway, what I'm now...
Yeah, it looks like... So I've actually missed a bit of face cam for a clip, so this is an interesting thing. I've got a section here where I actually show off the completed... or actually, it's like an intermediary section, by the look of it. And actually, it looks like the footage is a bit damaged. There was a stutter in the footage there, so it might be a good thing that I've missed the face cam section for it. So what I'll probably do instead is, during this section, I'll actually link my freehanding video instead. There's a bit of my head coming into the shot here, and there's a bit of stutter in the footage. So I think we'll just live without this and move over to this one instead. Let's just check where the audio ends here.
It does sort of create a good base point for it to go on top of. Then we just sort of select it.
Okay, so we haven't got a ton of space there. This is 59 seconds, so we're going to have to go at least 300%. Yeah, probably a bit more. I thought as much. So that's going to be quite sped up. But that's not necessarily a problem. That's not necessarily a problem. Let's quickly grab the Meredius Blue swatch to go over that. There we go. There we go.
Since I'm freehanding anyway, what I'm now going to do is go around and start chasing some lightning around this guy. First off, I'm going to use Meredius Blue here, and
a lot of hands in the way when you're doing this. This is, again, this is only really relevant if you ever intend to film yourself painting, but it is something worth being aware of. When you do freehand, obviously you have to keep your brush at a 90-degree angle to the miniature in order to get your lines to track properly. So when we normally paint, like, there's normally, you know, an angle, quite an acute angle between the brush and the surface, which obviously for general filling in of color, where you're using sort of the flat of the point, is great. But once you start freehanding, you really have to get in at like a 90 to be able to get the brush to track properly the way you want it to. And the issue with that is that it almost always means, because your camera angle is usually diagonal, it almost always means your hand is right in the way of your freehand. It's really hard to do anything about that. There's, like, I've experimented with alternative camera angles and stuff. You know, I've done quite a bit of sort of playing around with trying to figure out different angles that I can shoot from in order to make things like freehand work better. But when it comes down to it, there just isn't really a great way of doing it. It's just one of those unfortunate things. So if you are ever considering shooting your own painting, it's just something to be aware of, that when you do freehand, it is really fucking hard to get a good angle on it. Reacting in a manner not expected can get you told off. I have a long and boring story, one for the Discord maybe one day. Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it. It's always nice. I don't mind a few war stories in the Discord. The thing people have to realize as well is, like, when I tell war stories, or when I comment on like shitty things that people have said, the vast majority of the time that's actually just me laughing it off. That's actually just me being like, that's so fucking silly. And a lot of the time it's me sort of trying to find humor in it. It's not me lamenting about it, or, you know, getting upset by it or getting angry by it. And I know it can definitely come across that way sometimes. So, you know, if ever you've been, you know, if ever you've sort of witnessed me talking about something that's happened with, like, someone leaving a shitty comment or something, and it's come off that maybe I'm like raging about it and trying to rile up the crowd, that's not the case. The vast majority of times I'm actually poking fun about it. There is an element of riling up the crowd in the sense of, like, you know, it's nice to have a bit of solidarity when someone's being a prick. You know, it's nice for people to go, yes, I agree that you know, they shouldn't have done that. But it's, you know, I'm not the kind of person that's ever like trying to bring a mob down on people or anything like that. I don't really go in for that kind of thing. I think it's all a bit silly, because the problem with mobs is that the the side you're on starts to matter more than the point that you're trying to make, with that kind of mob mentality. And I don't think that that's the way to resolve any kind of conflict, whether it be, you know, something minor like someone leaving a dumb comment on YouTube, or something major like a, you know, big problem in the community or whatever. I don't think it really helps to, you know, create sides and for each side to have a legion of angry people on it. It ends up losing the point to me, I think.
The armor with. So obviously it's not going to create any contrast in the lightning, but it does sort of create a good base point for it to go on top of. Then we just sort of selectively...
And again here, I've got quite a long clip here. That's just going to be a little throat clear there, so let's just check the end of this.
A little sort of supporting role.
Yeah. This will just be a throat clear. Yep. That's probably not close enough.
What I'm also good...
Yeah, that wants to be quite tight. Okay, so we've got quite a bit of space for this one. This is the video 12. And again, we'll just leave a couple of seconds of face, and then we'll try this at 250%. It needs to be a bit more. 300%. That's good enough. I can chop off the end of that. Remove. Because again, this is just footage of me, you know, chasing with white paint, so it doesn't need to get too lengthy. Let's pop some cross dissolves on again. So what do folks think in general? Like, is this insightful for people, you know, seeing what this working process is? Is this something that's kind of, oh, I've always wondered? I really wasn't sure both how this stream would be received and whether or not it'd be interesting for me to make it. I'm really just doing it because this is what I was going to be sat here doing for the morning anyway. I've got actual you know, hobby to do after I finish doing this, but this was going to be my morning anyway, and I just thought some folk might gain something from just being involved in the process a little bit. So, you know, it was kind of, there's no risk to it. I may as well just chuck the camera on and see if people want to watch it. But I'd be very interested to know how people find actually watching this process, you know, what people think of watching a process like this.
The white off a little bit, just take a bit of the edge off of it.
Okay, so this is the glazing over. This is video 13. So this one's only 37 seconds, so we'll still need to speed it up, but we won't need to speed it up too much. Or maybe I'm wrong. We can probably cut a bit off the front of it as well. Yeah, we definitely can cut a bit off the front of it. So let's pull some off of there. Let's bring it back a bit more. Yeah, I'd still like to, let's take it to 300 and then cut it off. Not being very active in chat as usual, since I usually do other things while watching streams, but it's interesting for sure. Cool, no, that's good. I never necessarily thought that it was going to be a stream that would have like a ton of active chatting. Yeah, no, it's also definitely not the kind of stream that I would repeat. To be honest, I don't necessarily intend to ever repeat it. It's probably a one-off. But yeah, it is also, you know, to your point, it's the kind of stream that I wouldn't expect to really have a lot of active chatters, because I think the only people who probably are going to be actively chatting in a stream like this are people who have questions about video editing and stuff, right? People who maybe like want to become a YouTuber, or people who, you know, are like really new to the journey and still learning skills themselves, that kind of thing. I wouldn't have thought there'd be a ton of questions for other people anyway. At which point it just becomes like if people want to generally chit chat, which is also like totally fine. If you just want to shoot the shit and just socially chat, like that is also a thing you're very welcome to do. It is helpful. Always nice to get an insight. Question from me, actually, Rising Ape. How much does this differ to how you edit? How much is it different to how you do things? I would have thought editing would be one of those things where everyone's kind of got their own approach to it. I wouldn't have thought that there would be a ton of like uniformity to it. Okay. It's nice to have on in the background while I'm working, like being in an office again. yeah, I can imagine that actually. Right, let's try and stay focused now.
Now it's time for a coat of matte varnish.
Oh, I did actually record me matte varnishing. Okay, I didn't actually think I recorded a clip of me matte varnishing.
Bit weird, I know you wouldn't normally think of it that way.
So what have I got here? 27 seconds, and I've got to fit 1 minute and 12 in. Okay, well that's pretty good. Oh, that's just not even close to right. Let's just do that. 260%. Yeah, that's more than fine. Actually, if anything, footage of spray varnishing,
matte varnish. This serves a number of purposes that help us here.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's going to make all of these armor plates look more consistent. It's going to get rid of all of the sort of satin glare, which is going to let me sort of double check my blends and make sure that they are where I want them to be. They were how I wanted them to be. As I said at the start, the client wanted quite a lot of texture, so I didn't want the blends too perfect, and that would have been kind of a mistake in this case, which
I never have a separate audio source, so that is interesting for me. What do you mean? Like you record voiceover whilst you're actually physically doing the downcam thing? Is that what you mean? Instead of having voiceover on a separate track? Hey lass, how you doing? How's it going? I am editing. I don't know why this occurred to me as a thing to do as a stream, but I decided I fancied doing it as a stream, so I don't need a swatch for that.
Okay, there's some details now around the miniature that I want to fill in with some P3 Rulic Gold.
Okay, this is fairly quick. Again, before we trim it, let's just check how long we've got.
To that.
Because I think there's about the right spot for it. So I've got 11 seconds here, and I've got 47 seconds of footage. Oh, you're working on some World Eaters. Nice. White or red? Which flavor? I love a World Eater. You have the mic plugged into the camera, so you actually record your voiceover at the same time as you're recording your downcam footage. Yeah, I did that at first, to be honest with you. That was actually how I originally started doing things, and I kind of just realised quite early on that the issue that creates is if you make a mistake in your presentation of something, you can't. It's very difficult to unlink that from the physical footage, and so like putting corrections in can be difficult. And I make fucking loads of mistakes. I mean, as you can see from this, you can see how much we're having to edit footage down. So, white covered in blood. Oh, mint. Yes, that is my cup of tea. That is exactly my cup of tea. So, I love Chaos Space Marines. I've got a Word Bearers army. I've got just over 2,000 points of Word Bearers. And I really want to start a second Chaos Space Marine army, and like it was really tight between Emperor's Children, Iron Hands, and World Eaters. It was going to be one of those three. I did some test schemes for Emperor's Children. I actually ended up buying a few upgrade sprues and stuff as well, and realized pretty quickly that actually I didn't necessarily fancy painting an army of them, even though they're a really cool color scheme. Didn't really want to do a whole army. And I actually ended up settling on Iron Warriors purely because I was just like, do you know what, I can just get that done quickly. But I actually already have a silver Space Marine army. My Blood Angel successors are silver, so there's still a possibility that when I eventually do get round to that Chaos Space Marine army, it might end up being World Eaters again, because it did occur to me that maybe having 2 silver Space Marine armies is a bit shithouse. Fairly similar. I'm still quite new, so the drag on me is working out how to do specific things, i.e. inserting special effects, etc. I also use Premiere Pro. I can't help you on Premiere Pro itself, but what I can say is that was something that I had to spend a long time learning how to use. Just tweaking effects, getting them to do what you want them to do, knowing where to place them, how to place them, and all that. It's a big part of the figuring out process. So I totally get like why it holds you up and how frustrating it is, but because you're using different software, I don't know how much I can do to help. Hello Emma, you alright mate? Only mini bids, but general vlogs are a bit... Okay. No, that changes things slightly. Reminds me of my old Slaanesh fantasy army that was completely white in armor, like a minty clean look. Ooh, that's interesting. Minty kind of greeny sort of colors do not get a lot of use in mini painting. And that's probably a shame. How many elements do you have making up a video? Typically I have 40 plus with buttons and voiceovers. Well, this one's quite light, and it's about 40 odd, yeah. This one's pretty light. Heavy would be over 100 elements. But also you have to remember I put color swatches into mine, which means every single paint that I use, I have to make a graphic for. And I do keep a library of those on my computer, so I don't have to make them twice. But it's a lot of extra elements to incorporate, and they all need a transition on them and stuff, so, you know. Premiere Pro is a behemoth. I used it for a bit, but you really have to invest the time into it. I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's really powerful, but much less user-friendly. HitFilm's kind of on the opposite side of that scale. It's nowhere near as powerful, but it's really, really user-friendly. So we were trying to get this down to 11 seconds, weren't we? Or somewhere near. So, I mean, 15 seconds, it still feels like quite a bit to trim. But it is just painting shit gold. No, I think I still want to go all the way. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, how does this
miniature
look?
that I want to fill in with some P3 Rulik gold. Use this instead.
No,
of
the
a
speed
kind
up
of
looks
bright
fine.
gold. It's a really sort of brassy colour, but it's very, very reflective.
My head in the way.
Matte laid down, it offers a really good counterbalance to that. And then just
before I had a haircut as well.
I'm going to make some.
I make my own swatches, yeah, because I want them to kind of, you know, fit in with my overall sort of aesthetic needs. So I make all my own swatches. The thing is with swatches is, if you're a content creator and you want to use swatches in your mini painting videos, do not fucking fool yourself into thinking that they need to be color accurate. I've got 3 monitors in front of me that are all calibrated for different things, and my swatches look completely fucking different on all 3 of them, and they look different again on my phone screen. You cannot guarantee consistent output with colors. It's the same reason why comments about the specifics of coloration on people's stuff are completely useless. Every single monitor looks completely different. Yeah, just literally just color them to what you think is a reasonably good representation of the color, because you can't get it accurate. A monitor and print look completely different. Even the literal same hex value looks totally different from a monitor to print to real life, and even monitor to monitor looks completely different because it depends on how the monitor's been keyed in. So, I mean, like, of my monitors, like this one here is a gaming screen, which means that it's really bright. So that's the one that I use for my preview footage because it allows me to see the most stuff. This one here is keyed for office use. So this is the one that I tend to read text on a lot and stuff like that. because it doesn't fuck with my eyes. And then this, the one that's just down here that you can't really see, this one's keyed for graphics, because it's a drawing tablet, which again means that it's designed for you to be staring at it a long time, so the brightness is really down. I have a photo print background, so screen to print color accuracy is a sticking point I can't go. Yeah, I totally get it. Totally get it. But my honest advice is just, if you want to make color swatches for your mini painting videos, just make them roughly what you think they should be. You know, make them roundabout, because whilst, like, even if your equipment is perfectly tuned and looks shit hot and you're getting really good translation from real life to screen, you can't rely on your audience's equipment to be that tuned, right? It's the same reason why I always say to people, like, on your camera footage, on your you know, down cam footage, like, there's always this temptation to really pull the exposure down super low, so that you can see all the detail and stuff, and like nothing gets whited out by exposure. And you'll think it's a great idea, and then you'll view it on a mobile phone, and mobile phones, they'll automatically adjust brightness, and they'll pull the brightness down to about 50% when you're viewing a video, and suddenly your video looks dark as fuck, and you, in trying to not hide details, you hide details from anyone that views on a mobile phone. So it's like, you can't win. There is no way to win. You just have to go with what you think looks right, what you think looks good, and that applies to like all aspects of creating your video, but especially your graphics. Like this Rule It Gold here, the color of my swatch is nowhere near the color of that paint. Look, they're both in the shot at the same time. You can see them. Rule It Gold here, the pot of paint here. They're nowhere even close to similar. It just doesn't matter. It's just a representation. This is what matters, the color. This is the information. You know, this and this are the information. Like, they can see the paint going on the Mini, so they know what it looks like there, and they can see the name of the paint, so they can buy it. They can also see who it's made by, right? So that's the information that the viewer needs. This is just to look good. It's literally just there for eye candy. Right, so folks, if you can excuse me for just a couple of seconds, I really love all those questions that come in, and I would love to continue answering questions, but I'm desperate for a piss. So if you could just excuse me for a couple of seconds, I'm going to throw my Be Right Back screen up, and I'm going to just go for a quick wee-wee. Okay, I'm back. Now I've got to remember which one I had you on. This one, yes, good. Goody. So, we've got some really interesting stuff coming up later. I'll be showing you some stuff about keying, which I'm quite looking forward to, because I think keying is one of those things that a lot of people want to include in their videos and don't necessarily know how to work with. With all of that matte laid down, it offers a really good counterbalance to that. And then just on a few spots here and there, I'm going to mix some Okay, so this is my highlight in my metallics, which is this video. Oh, that's interesting. That's actually a shorter clip than I thought it was. How does this end?
Matte it off a lot, and then you'd probably want to highlight it much more to compensate.
Okay, so that actually works really nicely. We'll trim here, and then swatch this up. Oh, I actually didn't import my chrome swatch. I need to grab that. So that's going to be in color swatches, Vallejo, chrome. You got a brief look there at my library of swatches, albeit for half a second, but yeah, that's a library that I've been building. At the moment, honestly, it's mostly just the paints that I use the most frequently. I probably will never categorize every paint I own. Like, some of you have sort of had a bit of a look at my studio. It's a bit of a mess at the minute, so I don't really want to kind of point the camera around it, but essentially I've got like an entire shelf of Citadel here, another half a shelf of just Citadel base there. Then I've got like Scale Artist acrylics, Vallejo around there, Reaper, Scale, and then I've got like some archive shelves of paints that I used to use quite regularly, but maybe have found something better for that job now, so I don't use them as much anymore. And that's full of like Reaper and Scale. It would take me fucking weeks to categorize, to catalog every single paint I own into swatches, so it's just never going to happen. But I have catalogued, you know, all my most popular colors, which generally means now that before I shoot a video, I only need to maybe make like 2 or 3 swatches, not fucking 20. Right, what's the next job?
Little floodlight things on the chest. I actually didn't even know these were floodlights.
Yeah, back there's fine. Again, this is another section where I waffle a little bit. I might edit this.
You see them sometimes painted metal, sometimes painted with colours, sometimes painted with like an OSL effect coming off of them. Okay, now those little floodlight things on the chest. I actually didn't even know these were floodlights. And then kind of a subtle shade with many different approaches you see to these. I actually didn't realise they were floodlights, but they are, so I'm going to paint them with some sunny skin tone just to start them off.
Okay, no, that's actually fine. I just didn't name the colour until the end. I normally prefer to name the colour at the front of the clip, but it's actually fine. I thought I was waffling quite a bit and that these little sections here were me kind of finishing off that section, but they're not. They're actually new sections, so I'm actually pretty good to just carry on. Although we don't need a minute of footage for that, definitely not. Let's go for, yeah, something like that works for me. Okay. And then that is Sunny Skin Tone. Did I put Sunny Skin Tone in? Oh man, how did I miss Sunny Skin Tone? That's another swatch I've got to go and grab. And that is Vallejo, so we've already got the right catalogue open. So some of that, bit of that. One of them on there. And one of them on there. Okay.
And then kind of a subtle shade with some...
I know that this section's pretty quick. We're actually nearing the end now. We're on clip 18 and there's 21 clips. And again, I know roughly how this structures up.
Spread it around and make sure that it's fairly subtle.
Yeah, these are the clips where I did them live. So I've got to zero the audio on these. Some of these clips come from the stream. That's a point worth mentioning. Some of these clips actually come from the stream. Faster, definitely.
Right. With some thinned down Seraphim sepia. I do sort of let it bead initially as it goes on, but then I go back in afterwards and kind of spread it around and make sure that it's fairly subtle.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'll actually trim this here, and then I will leave a little bit of silence there. So we'll pull this, and we'll pull this. It's only going to be like half a second of silence, but that part of the clip where I actually start pulling wash off is kind of important. It's one of the things that I'm actually talking about in the clip, so I don't want to leave out the visual representation of it.
And then I'm just going to take some really thin down white and...
Okay, again, tap in some white.
The center of those lamps.
And again, I've got to zero the audio in the B-roll here because it was recorded during the live stream.
And just sort of tickle that in just really small spots here and there to create a bit of brightness towards the center of those lamps.
Okay, I've just got more footage than I need there, so I can afford to chop that.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite processes now.
I do really, really like this. It is no lie when I say that this is one of my favorite processes. It's really good fun. I'll probably leave this at 100% speed. So we've got Sunny Skin Tone there. Then the Seraphim Sepia. Did I seriously forget that as well? Oh my god, I seriously forgot to import fucking so many swatches here. So Citadel, Shade, Seraphim Sepia. So there, and then a cross dissolve on either end of it. There and there. Then some Dragon White. And cross dissolve on either end of that. Boop and boop. Right, so this is the texturing with dark aluminium. I'm actually I'm gonna leave this footage at 100%.
Black in amongst a bunch of metallic.
Again, I will remove that and I will zero the audio. I could just delete the audio track as well. Like, that's totally a way that you can handle that if you wish. But zeroing it's fewer clicks. Bucket Boy, hello. How you getting on? We're doing a weird stream today, Bucket Boy. We're streaming video editing, just because folk are often curious about it, and I thought it'd just be fun to do with people. It's probably not something I'll ever do again, but dark aluminium there. Again, cross dissolve either side of it. This is a lot of what the time consuming stuff is just applying all these little cross dissolves and stuff. But this
process
is
cool. Now I'm going to texture all of the metallics. What I do for this is, where my metallics are sort of all darker than, say, Viejo Metal Color Chrome in this example, chrome is therefore the perfect metallic to sort of use for this texturing. And the idea here is to put scratches and dings and shiny edges and all that kind of thing all over the metal.
Yeah, I like that being at 100% because I think it is a thing that's maybe a little bit unusual and is worth having that slower explanation. An intense as fuck game of Blood Bowl, nice. We've just started running a Blood Bowl league in my Discord server, and as per usual, because I'm the one who has no fucking time for anything, I'm late playing my first game, so I need to try and get that done today, really. I'll try and find time today. I really want to get into Blood Bowl. I want to just test this silence quickly as well.
Black in amongst a bunch of metallic. Okay, and whilst slightly abridged, that is...
Yeah, nice. So Here we're going to come to some pre-edited footage here. In my list here, you might be able to make it out, but I've got two videos here. One says 21 reveal vid after a few more tiny details. The other says 21A. And the one with the A is one that I've pre-edited separately. So I've pulled the constituent clips into HitFilm separately, actually saved them as their own MP4 after I've edited them. Librarian, did you not see the league? My game is a pre-season friendly, but I still could develop my team from it. Interesting. So Blood Bowl is actually one of those games I've wanted to get into for quite a few years now, and just never have really got down to it. I even own the last box set. I can see it from here. In fact, oh no, you can't see it. But I've just never quite got round to getting into it, so I'm really hoping that this league on Blood Bowl 2 will get me to get my finger out my arse and actually start to get into it. Because I own more Blood Bowl minis now. I love painting the minis. They're just so full of character. I do quite a few Blood Bowl commissions. So in an ideal world, I would like to get more into playing it. Oh wow, I'm really surprised you missed that. There was a lot of talk about it. It's even got its own channel. there's a Blood Bowl League channel. I apologise to anyone that may have just heard my stomach rumble. Oh man, I should have eaten breakfast if I was going to stream. Normally if I'm going to stream, I'll think of stuff like that. I'll make sure that I eat either breakfast or lunch. I did not do that today. I did not think to do that today. Everything that it takes to get this guy done as a Night Lord using this scheme. Now, right, so this is a mistake. So let's just see how this works. Now, there are a few things to this. Everything that it takes. And whilst slightly abridged, that is everything that it takes to get this guy done as a Night Lord using this scheme. So that's where we want that to clip. Using this scheme. Now, there are a few things to this commission that make it unique, as I've said before in the... Might save myself for a Warhammer Quest League when we get the new box. One thing I should point out, so it's Swerve in the Discord that's organising it, Librarian, and we have had a dropout. Somebody had to leave. I think Crystal was invited to stand in, but I don't know if she's actually decided whether or not she's going to do it or not yet. So if Crystal isn't taking that spot, then there is a spot on the league still. I just don't know what decisions she's come to. Video, the customer really wants me to lean into texture there she is. And contrast. Hello, mate, you're right. Wants them to look really, really good from 3 feet away where they're viewed on the battlefield. But then for people to be able to pick them up and look at them closely and say, "Oh, that's nice." Well, you've joined in for a really fucking weird stream. So I've thought about doing this stream for ages, whether or not people would find it interesting, and I've always just thought, it's not really on brand. You make mini painting content. This is technically, video editing content. I just thought to myself, maybe it's one of those streams where it would just be cool to just hang out with people while I'm working, and some folk might get something from it. So I eventually decided to do it, and what actually spurred me on to doing it was just that, there's been a little bit of unfair criticism recently, not just towards my content, but content creators in general have just been getting quite a bit of stick recently. And the reason I decided finally to actually do this stream is because it's very easy when you're part of a group that's getting a lot of stick to just want to respond to that by raging. And that's definitely a thing that I've maybe done once or twice. And I don't really like that. I don't like being that person. To be honest with you, to be completely blunt, I just don't like getting angry about anything. I hate getting angry. And because I'm such an emotionally reactive person, unfortunately, it is just a thing that happens to me much more often than I'd like. And so I thought to myself, maybe a better way of addressing that criticism would be to create this live stream and actually show somebody the thought and the physical process and all the prep work and everything that goes into making a YouTube tutorial. So this is going to be like a 10-minute video, and I'm going to show I already have shown and am showing and will show by the end of it the sort of 20 plus hours of work that go into the background of making this 10-minute YouTube video. And what I'm sort of hoping by that is just that some people will maybe have a bit of a new perspective on what content creation is. I think there's often this perception, and I don't think this is necessarily universal. I think this is a bit of a thing with the mini painting community at the moment, that like content creators feel like they're owed something, which isn't the case. But when you make free content for people and it takes literally like 20 hours per video to make that video, what you don't expect is just people shitting on your work for no reason, right? So like, my hope, I guess, is just that people will maybe sort of watch the playback of this or come in and watch it live and say, do you know what, actually, I didn't realise how hard these folks work to do this stuff. Even if I don't like it necessarily, even if your content isn't for me personally, at least I can now appreciate and respect how much effort goes into your content. And maybe that'll sort of help some people to maybe just not be as shitty towards creators, because it's not that creators want something in exchange for their videos. They just don't want to be had a go at just for doing their thing. They just don't want to be shouted at just for making their stuff, right? In my case, like I give people the option of Patreon. Like if they want to support the content, there's a completely separate platform that they do it on. It's nothing to do with the YouTube content. You get the YouTube content completely for free. If you want to support me, there's extra shit on Patreon for you, and you can choose to pay for that. No one's holding a gun to your head. No one's threatening to take away the free content. No one's asking for anything. All I do is at the end of every video just remind people, if they like the content enough that they want to chuck some money in the hat, here's where the hat lives. Like, that's, it's not, that's not expectation. See people talking about it all the time. Sounds fun though. Minis look great. Yeah, it's one of the nicest miniature ranges that GW does, in my opinion. Blood Bowl, I miss the League stuff, to be fair. I don't own the new version yet. No, I don't own the new version yet. I'd like to. I would like to. I have played it. If you'll join, I don't mind holding off till the next one. No, if you want to join, you should join. It's a crazy amount of time, isn't it? Yeah, but this is the thing is, it's not as straightforward as like I sit there and graft for 20 hours to make a tutorial. A big chunk of the time is the time to actually paint the miniature, right? Which I'm just, I'm using sort of, I would say sort of 15 hours of painting, 2 or 3 hours of creating assets, and 2 or 3 hours of editing a video would be like a pretty average video. So like, I'm not necessarily just straight up saying that it's 20 hours of fucking hard graft. What I'm saying is just that there's a lot more time and thought that goes into this shit than people think, even if it is just a quick 20-minute video or quick 10-minute video on the internet. It's very easy to look at that product and just, assume it's something quite trivial. But to the person creating it, there's a lot of effort there. There's a lot, there's research, and there's making graphics, and there's editing, and there's shooting, and there's reshooting if you make serious mistakes, and all sorts of stuff. The time you spend promoting, the time you spend answering questions, and responding to comments and stuff like that. It's all part of it. And I guess what I personally would like to see is for people to not think that creating content is like a DOS, like it's easy, it's it's free money. And I think that unfortunately that's a bit of the perception. I think people think that we do fuck all and get all the praise for it, which is just not the reality of it. In fact, if anything, the people who dislike your work tend to be far more vocal than the people who like your work. The vast majority of people who like your work will just consume it, and that's fine. That's, you know, you're making it for those people. They'll just consume it. A lot of them won't even like thumbs up a video, for example, not because they don't want to, just because they don't think of it, you know. And like, all of that is absolutely fine, but when the people that dislike your work are so loud about it, I do think it's important for maybe there to be an awareness there of like, look, you know, I get that you don't like it. You're allowed to not like it. You don't have to like it, but you don't need to shit on it because you don't like it. You can just not like it and just move on. Like, that is an option available to you. And I just think, you know, there's been a bit of fuzziness and shittiness recently. You know, there's women have had it fucking shitty this week because of a few people on the internet. Content creators are always getting dicked off, especially on Facebook. The Facebook community fucking hates content creators. And I just thought, you know, maybe this is just a thing that I can do that some folk will tune into, and it might just give them a bit of perspective. And for that reason, you know, if it's going to be fun and it's going to give me a chance to hang out with my community, and there's even a small possibility that it might just shift a few perspectives, you add all those things together, and I think, yeah, that's worth it. That's worth chucking some cameras on for. You know, I tidied my desk a bit. I fucked around to get a decent enough camera angle to show you this. And that's really, you know, that's all I've done that I wouldn't already be doing today anyway. Cheers for this, Stu. I learned some interesting bits. I need to go and do some actual work now, mate. No worries, no worries. I completely understand. You get on with your working day, my friend, and I will see you in the Discord, no doubt. Interesting thing that's going on there, or, oh, that's a thing that's been painted cool. So there's some challenges with this commission in balancing stuff that looks interesting from afar with stuff that is sort of enticing for you to want to come in and study. But I'm actually really, really happy with how this translated. I'd only painted an infantry scale miniature for this commission previously, and this is my first time seeing it translate to a larger scale miniature. So let's take a look at our completed Night Lord's Leviathan, and you can make up your own mind what you think. Okay. So is that a bit too long? 46 seconds. I often watch YouTube on my Xbox or TV and like, yeah, exactly. On you know, non-PC or phone formats, like just clicking like or subscribe is often extra clicks. Enjoyed the stream. Main takeaway: dwarves have a cool looking Blood Bowl team. Thanks, mate. Thanks. I mean, we're not quite done yet, bud. So you can stick around a bit longer if you wish to. Now, there are a few things to this commission that make it unique. As I've said before in the video, the customer really wants me to lean into... What's this part? Okay, and whilst slightly abridged, that is everything that it takes to get this guy done as a Night Lord using this scheme. Now, there are a few... Okay, yeah, no, I think I'm going to leave it in. It might be a little bit long, but I think it's worth leaving it in. So then, like I said, this is pre-edited, this reveal video. So all I need to do is insert that and then just drag the rest of the track. Oh shit, I've got the trimmer on still. Drag the rest of the track back to after it, and then just pull it back in line so that I can put transitions onto it. You have to have clips in line with each other to transition between them. So I can't actually leave that on a separate track layer. I actually have to pull it back in. That's a thing to look out for. But yeah, this is just a case now of pop a cross dissolve on there probably. And you can make up your own mind what you think. Yeah, and then on the end, I'll probably just put a fade. Oh, is that a gap in the footage? No, it's just the preview being fucking weird. Yeah, I'll just put a fade to black here. That music might be a bit loud against the vocal. when it gets to its sort of loudest point. So I think maybe just pull that music down a touch. I'll just go here for comparison.
Like Lord's Leviathan, and you can make up your own mind what you think.
Yeah, it is. That's a bit better.
Like Lord's Leviathan, and you can make up your own mind what you think.
There we go. That works nicely now. It's just not as jarring. Like I said, obviously, for this reveal part, because I recorded it separately as its own footage, I didn't have a reference point for the volume at that time, so I just recorded everything at default volume, knowing that I could do this and actually adjust volume. I still actually think at the height of its swell, that's maybe still a little bit too loud, so I'm actually going to pull it down just a touch more.
And you can make up your own mind what you think.
Yeah, that's way better. So that's about where I'm going to leave that. And then, so this is now the sort of closing part of the video, and this is where I've got to just put a couple of extra assets in. And there's a little bit of keying that I get to play around with here that I can show you. We'll have a quick talk about keying when I do that as well, because that's a thing in video editing that I find quite interesting. So we'll take a look at that. So this is just the after chat now.
There he is, actually beneath the surface, a pretty simple paint job, just with one main process, that panel highlighting, that's very, very slow, but everything else that went on top of it is really quite straightforward painting. It's pretty stripped back, it's not really overcomplicated in any areas, and I think that's kind of key to striking that balance between good from 3 feet away but interesting to look up close. Do something that's really high contrast, something that's really eye-catching, like texture, like panel blending, as a kind of main feature, and then include easy, simple freehand or, you know, fine texturing and things like that in order to give people something enjoyable to look at when they examine the miniature up close. I really love the way that those techniques came together on this Leviathan. I'm really looking forward to the next piece for the army, which is going to be a Demos pattern Rhino. So come back for some more of that if you liked.
Right, so the cue for me is when I say the word like. I'll pop into my assets folder. When I say the word like, I synchronize that with my like sub button. So this is my little like sub on-screen flash reminder. So the way that always ends up working is it ends up looking something like this.
For some more of that, if you liked this video, remember to hit that thumbs up and let me know that you liked it. You can also subscribe to the channel, you can enable notifications, and that's going to allow you to stay up to date on what...
Okay, so that's just using an audio cue in order to know how to position something. So it means that I don't have to like put any markers in or anything like that. It's just it's really quick for me to know where that needs to live, because I just use that audio click cue of when I say the word like, it's usually about a breath of space for that thumb to then pop up and go boop, and that's pretty much perfect for how I like that to look
when I'm releasing new videos here on YouTube. If you really love this...
And then love is my second audio cue for my patron reminder video, and this is always a little bit too loud. I always have to pull the volume down on it a bit. But again, that's just something I know. And then this is where we're going to do some keying. So you can see at the moment this is a black screen, and this is because, as I said, I don't have, well, just the knowledge really of how to make transparent MOV files. I don't know how that works. I could obviously do it as a GIF, but then I'd have to have the audio separate, and I'd have to add the audio in every time. Whereas with a MOV file, you can essentially have an animation on a transparent background and an audio track together as a video that you can just overlay, which is what this one here is. I don't know how to make these, so my solution for this is that I use keying. You can see that this is a black background and the Patreon logo is over it, and it animates. You've probably seen it at the end of my videos. I did the animation just with simple After Effects, you know, animation in HitFilm. Now keying, we're all familiar with green screen. That's a chroma key. And a lot of people think that that's the only way you can key footage is, you know, you have to have like green, blue or whatever in the background in order to cut it off. Chroma is one of the ways that your editing software can key, but you can also key off of luminance, which actually means that if you've got a pure white or a pure black background and your actual graphic contains no white or no black, so like in the case of a logo like the Patreon logo that is just blue and orange, there are no other colors present in the Patreon logo, just blue and orange. So what we can do is actually use the luminance value. Obviously black has an extremely low luminance value. So if I go into my effects here, in my favorites, I have a luminance key saved. And what's going to happen initially is it's just going to make everything disappear except for the brightest parts. And that's because it automatically sets its threshold at a luminance value of 0.5. But I happen to know that that black background, so what you would do here is you'd start dialing back that luminance threshold really, really slowly until just the bits that you want to make transparent disappear and everything else is still visible. I've obviously used this graphic a million times by this point, so I know that 0.11 is the correct value for the key. And what you'll see is as soon as I hit enter on this, boop, there's the rest of my logo. Beautiful. It's right there, ready for me to use. So luminance keying is a really, really powerful tool, a really, really useful tool for when you want to cut stuff out and you don't have a colored background behind it, but you do still need a fairly consistent, solidly colored background. I can actually key off of this, for example. I just realized you won't actually know what I'm pointing at, but my desktopper, the piece of black paper that I have as my desktopper, it's generally a bit inconsistent because it's black paper. It's usually sort of a bit grey in some lights and sort of dark grey in other lights, and it's never really truly black. But you could luminance key off of that because it's all consistently dark if you just had something light on top of it that you were trying to cut out. You know, so for example, like if I put this white paintbrush on top of my black desk background, then that would be something that I could luminance key out quite easily. It might get a little bit confused because there's a reflective part on the end of a paintbrush, so you have to bear that in mind. But it is an extra tool that people don't often think of. They don't often even know that it's available or exists. People, you know, like I say, often operate under the assumption that in order to key something out, you've got to have like a green screen, specifically a green screen. They actually make green screens in other colors as well, so that you can pick whatever color isn't at all present in your footage. And that's the point of a chroma key, is that it removes all of a certain color from the image, whereas with a luminance key, it removes all of a certain lightness range or a certain light value range. And that's why if you create a graphic on a black background, a luminance key is perfect because it's not going to touch any of your colors. It doesn't care what colors are present. It just cares about lightness and darkness. So like I said, when the threshold was at 50%, because this blue is quite dark, it was still deleting the blue. But as soon as you pull the threshold down to 0.11, then it's now only looking for colors that are even darker than that blue. And so the only thing that it's removing is the black. Obviously the luminance value of the black is really, really low. It's much lower than the blue, but 0.11 is the point where it first deletes it without deleting the blue. So it's a brief explanation of keying and how I use it. Again, for those of you that sort of make your own video content, you might find that really useful. Especially, for example, if you wanted to do your face cam on a keyed background and you had maybe like, say, a plain white wall behind you, you might be able to make keying work in order to delete your background, or even a plain white or a plain black. Using chroma keying, you might be able to make a plain colored wall work. It doesn't have to be a green screen, so it's just a useful thing to know. Want to support its creation, then there is a Patreon campaign as well, which you can find a link to in the description, along with my social media and my affiliate links, which are another great way to help the channel. Okay, so there's just a brief pause there to delete. Great way to help the channel. So with all of that said, it is about time I got out of here now. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's roll those end credits. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now. Okay, and then just trim off the end part of the video. And now we've just got to put the credits in. So again, this is in my assets folder. This end credits file, you'll notice, if you can see it clearly enough, I don't know if you can see it clearly enough, but you'll notice that it's dated. That's because whenever anyone subscribes on the £4 or up tier on Patreon, they get added to the end credits. So I actually have to remake this scene, you know, every now and again when people subscribe at that level. Whenever another person subscribes at that level, I have to remake this scene. I would really like if there was a way that I could like link it to a database or something instead, so that all I had to do was open that database and add the name, and it kept all the rest of the settings and everything, that would be fucking great. But again, as much as I'm sure that's doable, I don't know how to do it. So at the moment, what I have to do is put a static card down and then apply an end credits crawl, which is actually in effect in HitFilm, like a credits crawl, you know, like a normal movie credits crawl. And I add one of those, and then I customize that to get my Patreon shout out thing. But at the moment, I haven't, since the last video I edited, or since the 12th of February, I haven't had a new patron sign up at the £4 or up tier. Everyone that's signed up recently has been like at the 70p tier. So I haven't had to add any names to it since, which means that I have just got the footage there ready to go, which is nice and simple for me. You can see that it's just a short, I think this is about 10 seconds long. Oh, it's 23 seconds long. Wow, I didn't realise that. I suppose as it grows, it gets longer. You can see there that just scrolls through my patrons and then it disappears. And I just put a quick fade to colour on it, like that. And that is almost a finished video. There was actually something that I remembered that we forgot to do as well. I can now see that the video is 11:25 long, approximately. So that's a good thing. I now know roughly how long the video is. But also at the front of the video, while I was talking to the camera, I did want to include a couple of images, and I did actually import a couple of images in order to do that. So let's find a place for those to go, because I like to show the finished product at the start of the video where possible, because it's a nice way for people to see what they're going to get from watching the video. So before they decide whether or not to invest in it, they can see. And there's actually a few of my patrons who suggested that. So again, this is one of the really vital and helpful things about having a community around your work is that you've got a constant source of feedback. You've got people who will suggest things that they think would make content better, and they'll do it in a way that's that's kind and measured. They'll do it in a way that's constructive and helpful, and they'll do it in a way where you're asking for the help, where they're not just kind of sticking their oar in. So all in all, it's really, really useful. So let's find a home now, just at the start of the video here, to insert a couple of these pictures. Doesn't need to be all of them, one or two will do.
And that thing is a Leviathan Dreadnought from Forge World.
So I think here is where we should go. If we put, say, 3 of them in.
Forge World. I've been wanting, I have been coveting, I have been salivating over these things for so long now, and I just never seem to find an excuse to buy myself one.
Okay, now what I did do, I cropped these at 1:1, which was a bit dumb, but it's done now. But they should be high enough resolution that I can zoom and scroll them. So what I'm going to do is just zoom these, and then we'll start like this. And if we go into the controls for this first image and just move the slider back to the start, we can click position, scroll to the end just before the new image comes in, and change the vertical position just like that. And you see you get this little, you probably can't see this on camera, but there's like this little track line just coming down here. And that's telling me now that there's motion present. So what I'll do now is I'll put a cross dissolve on here, then I'll move to the next image and do the same thing again, position. Let's just resize it quickly. In fact, let's remove that for a second. Now let's go back to the start here. Position. And again, let's just scroll it a little. And then we'll pop another cross dissolve on. And go into the final image. why have you... okay. And again, we'll make this boy big. Pull it to around here. And position. And again, just a slight scroll on it. And so by doing that, what you're now going to get is this.
I've been wanting, I have been coveting, I have been salivating over these things for so long now, and I just never seem to find an excuse to buy myself one.
And so you see, it's just like a little sneak preview of the finished piece. It's only like 9 seconds. You don't really get to take in like a lot of what's going on. And so the idea there is to kind of entice someone into saying, oh, that looks interesting, I'll watch the entire fucking video, right? So that's kind of the thought process behind that section. But I do think it's really useful to have it up at the front like that. So all I've actually got to do now is, now that all of that is done, is just save and export. So we're actually going to come back to here now, not here, we're going to come back to here now, and I'm actually going to big up the camera again to the size of the whole screen, because that's basically everything that I can show. I just have to now export it and then upload it to YouTube. Like I say, there is a thumbnail for it already made. I'll pull that up for you. It's the easiest way of doing that. Add image, add new source, add browse. God, this is long-winded. Cards and graphics. And that, there you go. So there's the thumbnail for it. Again, already done in Photoshop. You know, took the photo with my camera. Already edited up in Photoshop and everything. I do that ahead of time. I usually do that stuff on the day that I shoot. So I sort of divide jobs into things to do on the shooting day and things to do on the editing day. So I shoot all the down cam, and then I make the thumbnail, and then on the day that I'm going to do the editing, I record the face cam. And like I say, that's just to keep it fresh so that I kind of remember everything that I'm trying to say, and can kind of edit around it a bit more instinctively without needing to kind of stop and pause too much. But that's the process. Like I say, that's a pretty easy video to show it off on. It only had 20 elements, 30 odd if you include the swatches. It's actually probably just under 40 if you include the assets and the swatches, which is pretty light. Like I say, a video like the Squig Hopper is probably getting on more towards like 80 or 90 assets. And then if we look at a video like, say, let's take a look at the Custodes one that I'm working on. That's already at 19 and it's only about halfway through. So that's nearly as much footage as I had for this entire video that we did today. And it's only at halfway through. So, you know, like there's a lot of variance to it. There's quite a great degree that it can vary to. Today was a pretty straightforward one, and honestly, once I kind of found my stride with talking to people at the same time as doing it, I actually was working pretty quickly today. In fact, if anything, having people to talk to has maybe made me work a little bit more efficiently today, so that's kind of been pretty cool. But yeah, that's the basics of what editing is for me. Anyway, that's the basics of my process. It's, you know, it's obviously always going to be different for every different user, every different editor. Everyone's mileage will vary based on how they like to do things, but that's, you know, roughly how it plays out for me, albeit it generally takes a bit longer than that because most videos are a bit more involved than that. So yeah, I'm going to end the stream now, but I will keep this up on the channel saved as an actual video for people to come back and reference to. In fact, what I might even do is download it, edit it a little bit to sort of remove some of the chaff and actually re-upload it as a tutorial on making tutorials. That might be something that's interesting to do at some point. I don't necessarily think it will get a ton of views, but it might just be something that's there that's handy for certain people to be able to reference back to. So hopefully you enjoyed it anyway. Hopefully it was something different. If you are new to the channel and are still watching, patreon.com/that Mr. Shy. If you want to support the content, get into the Discord, that kind of thing. It's only 70p a month to get into the Discord, and they're just fucking amazing. They're just the most wonderful people. I love them all so very much, and like last night in particular, they really reminded me why I love them so much. They're just so good to each other all the time. Really look after each other. Never give each other grief. Just fucking brilliant group of people. So if that's a thing you want to get in on and join, it's not expensive to get in. You get a bunch of other benefits as well. Other than that, that's about it from me today, I'm afraid. I'm going to go and build a tree now because people like Crystal like to fix poles on Twitter. So I'm going to build a Blood Bowl treeman now. That's my next job for the day. Getting ready to try and squeeze that in before a big commission that I'm starting later on this week. I've got a commercial commission that's actually come in. I can't talk about it, unfortunately, because I'm under a non-disclosure agreement. But I've got a commission coming in for what I can say is that I'm actually painting box art for a board game. I can tell you that much. I can't really safely say any more than that without potentially breaching my NDA. But as you can imagine, obviously that's a big job. It's very important, for my career as a miniature painter, as a professional miniature painter. And it's going to take a lot of my focus and concentration, which means that there is going to be a bit of a dip in content because I'm going to have to just not work on anything else while I'm doing that. So I'm hoping I can squeeze this in before that, because that'll at least mean that I've got like one video I can chuck up next week while I'm working on it. But the chances are there's going to be a little dip in content while I sort of stock back up on a few videos, because I'm not going to get to do anything while I'm working on that. And, that's just sort of the nature of that work, unfortunately, is that kind of work, as much as like it's exactly the kind of work I want to be doing, it's, that sort of private studio work is like exactly the direction I want to take my career in long term. But it is quite often a bit last minute, because by the time they've sort of cleared up IPs and approvals and, got the test models actually printed to a high enough standard that they can pass them to a painter to work on and that kind of thing, it often just eats into a lot of the time frame, and by the time they get into your hands as the painter, it's quite rushed, which means that they're just the kind of jobs that sometimes will come on quite last minute and you won't have very long to turn them around. And if that happens, you don't say no to the job. It just means you've got to be all hands on deck for a bit. So that's the plan, is to just be all hands on deck for a week or so while I work on that. I've got about 8 days to do it in, and that'll be fine. And then I'll be back. So yeah, if there is a dip in content, that'll be why. You already know now. I have sort of announced it in as much of a way as I can announce it elsewhere as well, but I will sort of remind people if anyone asks. And then yeah, things will just go back to regular schedule, and then eventually the board game that I'm working on will be released, and then I'll be able to actually tell people about it. I'll be able to tell people, what board game I worked on, and show people the actual work that I did for it. But until it's been released, I can't do that. Because it's, spoilers in the legal sense as opposed to in the annoying your friends sense. Hey, I'd commission you to paint squigs, Crystal. To be fair, I'd commission you to paint squigs. Your squigs are banging. I'm a big fan. Crystal squigs are literally what inspired the squig that I did recently. So, right, it's time for me to get out of here. It's time for me to wrap up. Thanks, Bucket Boy. That's really nice. Yeah, it's time for me to get out of here. I'll be in the Discord. I'll be on Twitter if you want to continue to chat. If you have any further questions about video editing, about my process, hit me up. It's, I'm always happy to talk shop, to chat shit, to just have a laugh, whatever. I really don't mind. I'm into that. The community aspect of of content creation is the part that I love most. So, you know, feel free to get in touch. You're always welcome. But for now, I am going to get out of here. Thank you everyone who watched, whether you're still here or not. Hey Brandon, you've arrived literally exactly at the end of the stream, mate. Exactly at the end. But yes, I will be in the usual places if you want to get hold of me. You'll find me on Twitter and Discord a lot, and on Facebook and YouTube comments a little bit less.